All right, welcome to Startup Showdown episode 17. Folks are just starting to trickle into today's episode, so thank you all for joining us. Today we are going to be talking about climate and energy technology in our 17th episode, powered by Tech Council Ventures and in partnership with PSEG and New. We are very excited today to be featuring three incredible companies that are building solutions for a better and cleaner future for us all. I'm going to be getting things started in just a moment. I'm Jasmine Hoffman, your host today. I'm the head of experience at Tech United. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, Tech United is an organization that empowers entrepreneurs, innovators, and disruptors to build a better future for all. My colleague Hallie is on the call and she's sharing her screen. I'm going to ask her to stop sharing her screen so I can introduce the wonderful folks we've got on camera here. Today, like I mentioned, our episode is about climate and energy technology. This episode is being recorded and it'll be available on our Startup Showdown page after the fact. Climate change is obviously something that's super top of mind. I don't know that a day has gone by, especially in the last couple of years, that we haven't thought about how we can all be doing a better job to make sure that not only are we living sustainable, but we're also leaving a better future behind for our children and our children's children. There are so many ways to tackle climate change, to address opportunities for rising temperatures and other incredible ways that organizations are using technology and innovation to make our world a better place. What I would love for folks in the chat to do is drop a note in about how you're doing one small thing to address climate change and to live a little bit more sustainably yourself. I, for one, am a big fan of always turning on the lights using LED light bulbs. PSEG taught me that actually. So we're gonna get started today. I would love to hear how folks are working to leave behind a cleaner planet and a better future for everybody, which is not only the Tech United mission, but the focus of today's episode. We have three incredible, innovative startups that are gonna be joining us today that are gonna showcase their products and pitch their companies. Before they do so, I'm gonna introduce our three expert investor judges today. Steve, our veteran investor, can you say hello and tell us where you're joining from today?
Thank you, Jasmine. I am joining from my home office in Summit, New Jersey. And Tech Council Ventures is a New Jersey-based regional generalist fund, early stage. So we're investing across healthcare, enterprise, and clean tech. And we partner closely with Tech United and love our relationship with Tech United and all the joint activities that generate great deal flow and partnership for our portfolio. And lastly, I'll just mention that for the last year or so, I've been very involved in DC through the National Venture Capital Association with work around climate tech and energy tech on a federal level. And I actually sit on the board of a company that makes LED lights.
Wow, that's such a small world when you're trying to make a better one. Thank you for that, Steve, and thanks for joining us. Abigail, I think this is your first time joining a Tech United live program, so we're so excited to have you. Would you tell us a little bit about who you are and where you're joining us from today?
Sure thing. Thanks, everyone. Very excited to be here. So my name is Abigail Phillips. I am the Senior Director of Climate Solutions and Business Integration at PSEG. I'm actually in the office today in Newark. PSEG is electric, gas, and nuclear, utility, and then merchant generation from a nuclear standpoint. And my role is to set science-based targets through scopes 1, 2, and 3, aligned with the SBTi framework, to decarbonize our operations and look at other opportunities that PSEG has in the space to address the public good of climate change for both our customers and the state of New Jersey. I've been at PS for about 6 years, been in the power and utilities sector for a really long time, with a risk, regulatory, and internal consulting background. So I see this as a great opportunity to take all of that learnings and apply it to this grand challenge. And I'm very interested to hear the pitches, because as we look to decarbonize our operations and the economy-wide carbon challenge, every little bit is going to help. So really glad to be here today. Thanks.
Thank you for being here, and thanks for all the work that you're doing and you're planning to do for decarbonization and climate change. Dan, fabulous to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us. Where are you joining from today? And can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm Dan Gura. I'm the Senior Vice President at Hugo New Capital. I'm joining from Philadelphia, PA. So if anyone wants to come down for a cheesesteak, please do so. You're totally welcome. Hugo New Capital, we're a private investment group, and we focus on early stage companies. And our mission is to invest in technologies and practices that drive a greener and sustainable future. We're a private family office, and we're building upon the legacy of John and Wendy New. We have about 130 acres at Kearney Point. So we facilitate and feed about 120 companies that are there right now. And really, one of the answers to your question that you pose around teaching our children about, how to respect the environment is really important to me as a father. And so one of the things is teaching my kids to recycle, dragging the recycling bin down to the curb on Fridays. I think it's really important that our children understand, as we witness climate change literally every single week, especially in Yellowstone right now, which is horrible. I think we really do need to continue the effort to educate our children around this.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. And thank you again for also focusing on fostering innovation and clean tech innovation right here in New Jersey, as well as the region. We'll forgive you for being in PA right now. So we have 3 companies that are going to be pitching us today: Flower Turbines, Biodome, and Array Light. Before they each present, I'm just going to ask the 2 founders we've got on screen right now to say hello and where you're joining from, and then we'll start with our first pitch of the day. Joe, I'm going to start with you. It looks like we're getting Daniel's mic back up.
Oh,
there you go.
okay. There we go. My name is Dr. Daniel Farb. I'm joining you from Long Island.
Excellent. Thank you for being here. Jara?
Hi, my name is Jared Siegel, and I'm coming from Mount Laurel, New Jersey.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. We'll have the third company introduce themselves and their location when they get up to pitch, but without further ado, we're going to start with Dr. Daniel Farb's pitch on Flower Turbines. You'll have 5 minutes to present your deck. After that, we'll hear feedback and questions from our judges on screen and our audience. Jara, we'll see you back on screen in a few minutes with your pitch.
Okay. Do you all see me and hear me? Okay.
Yep.
So I'm introducing Flower Turbines. It's a revolutionary small wind turbine company, and we believe we're the only ones that have the ability to grow it into a major global company. We've had some recent validations. We were chosen in 2020 as one of the 10 most fundable companies in America. We're chosen by Impel Plus, a innovation program of the US Department of Energy. And we are solving these problems. In general, low noise and efficiency have not gone together. Number 2, when turbines are close together, they interfere with each other. 3, controversial aesthetics. 4, they're bird dangerous. We have solved all of these problems and more, and we've made efficiency and zero noise go together, and we've made it so the turbines can be clustered and actually perform better, and they are works of art. So here is some of our history. I think we've gone out of full screen mode, so I'm sorry. This is a cluster in Amsterdam. This is the Hilton Hotel in Israel, and the city of Rotterdam. These are e-bike charging stations. And I just came back yesterday. We are launching US sales and manufacturing, and we helped to power a Coldplay concert in Tampa, Florida. And here is Earth Day in Lubbock, Texas. We also have a whole line of e-bike charging, so we're enabling another green industry through using our turbines and other technologies to make convenient charging stations. Now, here's a slide that will show you 2 of the technologies in one slide. It's a simulation. The outside wind is coming at a yellow speed. As it enters the turbine, the 2 blades of the turbine, you will see that it actually accelerates at certain places to red. In other words, it becomes even faster after it hits one blade and hits the second blade. That's a patent on ratios already granted in 2 countries. The other thing is you'll see it's intense red on the side. In other words, it drives wind tunnels into turbines that you place on the side. That's the cluster effect, already granted patent. We have 6 areas of patents. The first set are in aerodynamics. We are moving into patents in manufacturing, installation, and electronics. We believe that our next step of disruptive innovations in wind turbine electronics will be just as important as what we've done with aerodynamics up to this point. Now, I took a case of Cape Cod to show you something important. If you compare wind and solar, and I just want to say, I like solar and I like solar in combination with wind, but in certain areas, there's certain important differentiators as to what we can offer. The bottom line is, if you look at the bottom, our revenue per square meter in a place like Cape Cod, which is low sun, high wind, granted, is 770% higher than for solar. We start at lower wind speeds than other turbines. Here you can see that we're starting at below 1 meter per second of wind. Most wind turbines are at 0 and start up here. And here's the cluster effect. As you move the turbines into the right position, the power jumps up. So there's very little direct competition. Really, our only competition is from the grid, from low solar prices, and from low large wind prices. But because we are producing energy at the point of use, we have very good competition. We have a fantastic multinational team, both in the United States, the European Union, China, Middle East, all over, people in social media, in administration, and in engineering. Our financials last year were around 500,000. We believe that with our US manufacturing kicking in this year, we can reach the 10 million plus range. And then as things really take off in both the US and the EU next year, we believe we can get into the 20 to $40 million range, and maybe even higher. We've raised funds. I started myself for a while with 2.5 million of my own money and a little bit more from others. We've now had 3 rounds of Start Engine crowdfunding. The first was 1 million, second was 1 million, and we've just recently finished a $9 million round. So it's nice, we have cash in the bank and we're preparing for our next round, and we will take investments from selected angels until that happens. There we are, and looking forward to your questions.
I'm going to start with Steve.
I like it. Can you talk about the cost per capacity of your devices?
So when we talk about cost per capacity, remember that there are 2 things. What is the cost per the rated capacity, and what is the cost per the actual amount that you produce? So the cost per capacity depends on the size of our turbines, because we have 3 sizes. The biggest one is going to be our workhorse in terms of lowering the LCOE, which is the cost per kilowatt hour. So we've done projections on that, and once we're in moderate production, that will be between 7 to 15 cents per kilowatt hour. And that is dependent, of course, on ease of installation and the cost of the grid at that particular location. So there's obviously a range. If you look on the cost per rated capacity, it's going to be rather high compared to solar, but the key is that we're more efficient than solar. So that's why I'm trying to avoid getting into something like what's the cost per total capacity, because it doesn't really make sense in our niche. For large wind, large solar projects, you're talking about maybe $2 per kilowatt. We're more in the range right now, low scale production, of $5 to $7 per kilowatt. But that's made up by the fact that we provide the energy at the point of service, not after it's been transported for hundreds of miles.
Right. And I'll just ask one more, which is, so in your rooftop application, you're using some solar, it looks like, to power your devices in some way?
No, we can use solar if you want for a microgrid. But we provide wind alone, but we can also provide
Yeah.
solar along with the wind.
I
But
saw
we
one of
don't
the
have,
pictures you showed, looked like you had a solar
yes,
thing.
we've done some installations where we have solar at the same time as the
Gotcha.
wind. And by the way, it's very convenient that sometimes we can make our side panels so that they can have solar panels on them and provide solar at the same time. And our charging systems, we have several different kinds of e-bike charging systems. The main one has wind at the top and solar in the middle, but we can also sell solar alone or wind alone, and also on grid as well.
And can you say something about time in the field and maintenance records?
So the one that you saw from Israel that had the Hilton on it, that was running for 10 years with zero maintenance, absolutely zero. Because these are vertical axis turbines, they are, if they're installed symmetrically, they can last for 20 to 40 years. There will be a need to change the lubricating oil occasionally, but we're anticipating very long lifetimes for them.
Thank you.
Sure.
Abigail, your thoughts?
Sure, thanks. First of all, I love the design. It is very aesthetically pleasing, and I think it does look very nice. So I just wanted to comment on that. I think the tulip shape is beautiful.
We try to combine beauty with science.
Function, yeah. Oh, I really appreciate that. So my questions kind of fall along the lines of, applications in terms of who uses this. Have you designed this for residential customers? Have you designed this for commercial industrial customers? In your PowerPoint, you showed many different applications for it. And I was just wondering about, what you're really going for in terms of who is your main customer.
So it depends on the size. So
Okay.
let me just say that our large size is intended either for utility type customers or for semi-utility. In other words, that you can have like a small wind farm of 10, 20, 30, 40 outside your typical mall. We're in the middle, by the way, of making an appointment with Mall of America, New Jersey. And we intend to go after Walmart, many other different malls. So that has a particular market. The medium size has multiple markets. It's more for strong rooftops, for integration into microgrid, high wind areas. And we have special areas that we're going into that involve things like advertising, low corporate image, things like that, where it's a combination of good energy, but also has other uses. Our smallest one has some very specific applications. Number one is that we are coming out with this in the next few weeks, is a survival unit where people can plug in when there's a major disaster. The grid is down and they can use these to power their phones, do some emergency LED lighting, things like that. And also we are already using them on rooftops for a combination with solar, small amounts of grid connected. And after we do some testing with one of our installation patents for how to install them better on slanted rooftops, we intend for those to get into the slanted rooftop market. Also, the two smaller ones are better for off-grid. We already have a sale, for example, for the Dutch military for helping to power radar off-grid. So there's some very interesting niche markets. And the one that I just came back to, which is for a rock concert, is that we were helping to power the batteries that they use in the rock concert. And so I just got back from Coldplay in Tampa yesterday night.
And that's a great segue into my next question. I also love Coldplay and I've seen them multiple times. What percentage of the energy, total energy, do these contribute to those applications, either that be a concert or commercial building or residential building? Like, how much does this contribute compared to the overall energy needs?
Well, the overall energy need of a concert is incredible. It's still, it's a small percentage, but they can get good energy with the percentage. We've sent our first invoices to them. They've said they're going to probably buy 30 to 40 more for their different tours. So the amount that they would be producing at the different tours will increase. But it's a small amount, relatively speaking. I think when you're talking about a home, it could be a large amount. We're doing our operations and manufacturing for the North American market in Texas. And in Texas, a couple of these could power a home, the medium size.
Okay.
It really depends on the location. For example, probably of interest to you, Long Island and the Jersey Shore are very windy areas. So these could definitely be a part, particularly of some kind of solar combination, because I'm sure you know that generally in coastal areas, solar peaks at around 12, but wind actually peaks in the afternoon and matches the peak power profile better. So for somebody like you, it's very important because it takes off during the peak profile times, particularly in the summer, like August, when you're most prone to blackouts. That's when you have the greatest difference between the cool ocean and the sea breeze being accelerated by the high temperature on land that pulls the sea breeze in faster in the late afternoon when people are air conditioning and so forth. So each one of these has a special niche major application.
Okay, thank you. Jasmine, I can let someone else ask questions now.
Those are great. I knew you would have a nice technical perspective. Dan, you're up next to provide some feedback. What are you thinking?
Yeah, so I was just curious in a little bit more detail around your strategy for market penetration in the United States, over the next 6 to 12 months.
Okay, so one of the things I put down on our Pepperdine application is that aside from just a regular sales model, we have two well-known business school type corporate sales introduction models. One is the Tesla type model. And that is that we have something that's very high brow, and we have a market of people, and I can't tell you all the names that are involved in orders and potential orders right now. But it's people want it for the aesthetic. We also have a luxury line that's coming out, and also with an artist in New Jersey that's was on Sopranos and also is going to be one of our our brand ambassadors for this. So that's kind of a separate niche, but it's where we do lower volume. People really want it partially for the beauty, partially for the energy. And then we lower the cost of production through mass production, and we make it available and cost effective for more and more of the population. The other is a Nike type introduction. Nike took regular old sneakers and they made them beautiful. We're taking regular old wind turbines that produce electricity and making them beautiful while we're making them cost effective. So those are two things. But I think a lot of our market introduction in this year is going to be in West Texas, where there's a very easy, good return on investment available. And it's also close to our manufacturing, so that if there's any need to replace a part, we can drive to them to do it. So that's just part of our strategy. As I said, we are coming out with the survival unit in the next few weeks. And there have been blackouts this summer already in Ohio, East Coast, as well as the big one in Texas that everyone knows about from last year. So this can be something that can help people in case of emergency. So we don't know how fast it's going to go or how big it's going to get, but we're launching.
Questions from the audience, then we'll be heading over to our second pitch in just a few moments. one person asked specifically, Peter asked, how do you compare to ice wind turbines?
I don't want to talk about any specific other ones, but I think the advantages of ours are clear. I'm not here to go point by point, but I think if you look at everything and look at the specs, and you'll figure out for yourselves.
Okay. You mentioned earlier how you have some turbines on buildings and how they need extremely low amounts of maintenance. I know that in the past, wind turbine blades have been a point of potential issues in sustainability. How do you build this to make sure that it's serviceable as minimally as possible and also is not creating excess waste in terms of the actual manufacturing?
So that's an interesting question. We've gotten that a lot. And in Europe, they are grinding up old blades and using them in concrete. So that's one established use. It's not really done in the United States yet. Also, while I was in Rotterdam on the way to our office there, I passed by a park bench that was a huge recycled wind turbine blade from one of the big wind turbines. And it was painted all sorts of nice colors. So it shows how you can get creative. The other thing I can say, we're just talking to, and we're trying to see if there's a way we can work with them. The corporate strategy people at Corning have been in touch with us, and we've been in touch with them about seeing if there are ways in which the fiberglass that we use can be used in some sustainable ways. And I did see that they are starting to experiment with some sustainable types of fiberglass. So there are things on the way.
Options. Okay. The final question has to do with your survival kits or your survival turbines. What is your anticipated plan for going to market here? I would expect that these are meant to be a democratized opportunity to provide power to folks in these types of blackout situations. So are you looking to work within like larger government contracts to distribute these evenly throughout cities and urban areas? What are you thinking here?
So our immediate launch is going to be social media targeting of areas that have been hit by these in the past. Obviously, everybody, including our employees in Texas, were hit by a week of freezing temperatures, et cetera. Now, you could also do these kinds of units with solar. And I think, as I said, they're a very good combination. They cover most of the day. But when you have these storms, there are clouds and there's high wind. So which is really going to be doing the job for you when you have this kind of emergency? It's small wind. So we've built them, we've tested them. We're ready to get the first ones on the market in a couple of weeks. I don't know exactly what day yet, but I can say that my parents live in Massachusetts. And one of the reasons I thought of this was a number of years ago, the grid in Western Massachusetts went down after a storm. And I was calling my parents and they were saying, we can't speak too long because we need to keep our phone charged in case we have a health emergency or something, we need to call a hospital. So that was like the inspiration for me to make this special niche market. And it's almost everywhere, unfortunately. Sorry, Abigail, maybe it's better in New Jersey, but the grid in the United States has a lot of problems. And even in your service area in Long Island, I lost power during a storm once briefly. And of course, there was Hurricane Sandy. So we're seeing more and more of these extreme events. And it's a challenge both for the utilities and for the people who are served by the utilities to deal with this. And I believe that there are a lot of people who would like to be protected just in case.
Well, thank you so much for your pitch. We're going to bring you back on for the last bit of the episode for our final remarks and audience choice poll, but we're going to bring up Jara right now to present Biodome. Jara, you can start sharing your screen and don't forget to let us know what you're doing beyond creating this company to create a more clean energy future for us all.
All right. Here we go. Let me ask you a question. How does food get to millions of Americans on a daily basis? The answer is it has to go from a farm to processing and packaging centers to shipping, finally to a grocery store where it sits, and then you can take it home. This process takes lots and lots of energy and is extraordinarily costly. So our large scale problem in regards to this is that food isn't currently grown in cities, and cities are where the majority of the population is. The problem that Biodome actually aims to solve is more so for apartment owners and apartment tenants. Apartment owners, their rooftops are completely barren, most apartments. So for these apartment owners who are looking to monetize every square foot of their building, their rooftop does nothing for them. And their tenants, it's really difficult for them to find farm fresh produce in cities. Where do you go to find a farmer's market? And then additionally, if you're a tenant of an apartment building, how do you know what goes into the process of your food getting from the farm to your house? There's a lot of steps to it. So our solution is to provide produce as an apartment amenity via sustainable rooftop greenhouses. This allows tenants to get farm fresh produce grown right on top of their building. It allows building owners to monetize their roof space, and it allows us to grow plants right in cities. In terms of market size, we use the bottoms-up approach. We are looking to target mainly high-end apartment buildings currently in order to enter into the market space. Given that 23% of apartments in the US are high-end apartments, gave us about a 7.6 billion target market size. And our target market is increasing on a yearly basis, as about 87% of new apartment buildings are high-end apartments. So the actual Biodome, it's a sustainable rooftop greenhouse. It uses solar power and rainwater collection to give us extraordinarily low expenses. We use aeroponic growth methods and grow lights in order to grow plants using science even faster than normal. And then it's fully computerized, which allows us to just turn it on. And then all we have to do is send someone in to pick the produce on a weekly basis, no maintenance required. So here's how our business model works. We build the biodomes on top of these apartment buildings. Then we send an employee over on a weekly basis to pick and catalog the produce. If you're an apartment tenant, you'll receive an email on a weekly basis, and this will tell you what produce is available to you this week. You can pick from the produce that we have available, and then it will show up in a bag on your doorstep or at your concierge desk. So we recommend a 2-biodome system, as this will allow us to grow plants on varying cycles so that we always have produce to give to tenants. This will allow us to serve roughly 280 tenants in an apartment building. We plan to charge the building owners a subscription fee of $20 per tenant in their building, which will yield us annual revenue of about just under $70,000 per apartment building that we sign with. Upfront, for us, it costs us $37,000 to $44,000 to build 2 biodome units, but our operating expenses are extraordinarily low because of this solar and rainwater collection. The apartment building owners, we provide them, but the average amenity provides an $150 increase in price per apartment unit. So it yields them an $110 profit per apartment unit, assuming that they have the average of 2 tenants per apartment. Our go-to-market strategy, we're in the process of manufacturing right now. We're working on additional research and development for commercial aeroponics, and we're looking to get some IP. We're hoping in the next 3 to 6 months to have our R&D finished and our first commercial biodome constructed. We're looking at a partnership with Mount Laurel Township or Burlington County Agricultural Facility. Then we need to move on to hiring and sales. We are looking to bring on a full-time CTO currently. And then our biggest hurdle is going to be getting an apartment deal, actually putting our first biodome on the top of an apartment building. We do have a couple of apartment buildings interested currently, so that's our goal by the end of this year. By the time we hit the end of year 5, we are looking to have a total of 15 biodomes in operation. In terms of funding, we're looking to raise $210,000 currently. This is mainly going to go towards research and development and capital expenditure in order to get our first 2 biodomes in operation, one on the ground in Mount Laurel, and then the second one on the rooftop to finalize our proof of concept. Help us bring biodomes to rooftops in cities across the country. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that presentation, Jared. Excellent job. We are going to start off this time in reverse with Dan's feedback first.
So, I look at this as a paradigm shift in the sense that you have to have buy-in from your real estate developer or your apartment, sort of leaseholder. And so I guess what's the pivot if you don't get sort of that reception that you need to drive sales? That's my first question.
So firstly, we do have 39 customer discovery interviews with apartment building owners, property management firms, LIHTC housing, et cetera. So we have done a significant amount of research in terms of figuring out that this is the type of market that we're looking to move into. But if this wasn't to work out, then we are currently working on a deal either with Morristown Township, Mount Laurel Township, or the Burlington County Agricultural Center in order to put up biodomes as kind of like year-round farmers markets or sustainability projects within these areas. So we do think that that's potentially another direction we could move in. And it would also help with solving food deserts if we could get these into some of these more rural areas or areas that have a harder time growing produce.
Thank you. Just one other follow on. Is there any IP that's aligned with your technology?
We do not currently have any IP. However, we are looking to get IP for our commercial grade aeroponic units, which we're developing, and we're looking to get some IP around our rainwater collection and reutilization system that we're implementing as well.
Thank you very much. On to Abigail.
Okay, a couple questions. The first question is, what kind of things do you grow in your biodome?
So we can grow pretty much anything except for root vegetables and trees. We have 2 to 3 levels within our biodome. It's integrating vertical farming. And so on the upper levels, we can grow herbs and microgreens, some of these smaller plants. And then on the lower levels, we can grow tomatoes, squash, pretty much anything that's got a larger stem and produces fruits.
Have you looked at, kind of what produce customers buy the most and what they would need? So in terms of the use of the biodome within apartment buildings that would generally be high end, have you done any analysis on, just like you said, oh, everyone buys tomatoes because they use it for X. Have you done any kind of analysis of what consumers would want from the biodome?
So we have around 330 plus customer discovery interviews with tenants and residential homeowners. And so we do have some idea of what typical produce people are purchasing. We've also done a little bit of research into what types of produce people are looking to buy most commonly. But we think that we could go one of 2 ways with this. We could either go with the extraordinarily difficult to find produce that we could give and offer, in terms of herbs, something like saffron is something really difficult to find. We could go on that spectrum, or we could go on the other end where we go very common plants like basil and tomatoes and garlic.
Okay, yeah, because if your model is produce as a service, right? So it's more about the produce than it is. So let me phrase that differently. Is it more about the produce or opposed to the system that grows the produce?
I think that the service that we're providing is much more about the produce. The impact that we're looking to have environmentally is more so about the technology.
Yep, because it is a very carbon intensive, produce is very carbon intensive just in general. I saw your diagram and I agree. Last question. And I'm speaking from my own personal experience as a potential customer. I'm horrible at coming up with ways to use produce. Have you thought about partnering with something like a Blue Apron or other entities that help people give ideas to use the produce? So, you know, as your take rate might be a little bit more, you know, so people actually use it versus just, you know, kind of pay for it. And just wondering if you had any other ideas in terms of partnering with other entities.
We had not thought about partnering with other entities, but each Biodome produce bag will come in a canvas produce bag to be sustainable, and we can reuse the same ones, have people drop them off at their front desk, we refill them, give them back to them. And we plan to include a recipe card as with one of the items that you've been given. So on a weekly basis, we will come up with a number of recipes. And then additionally, we want to tell people how their produce was grown so that they can understand that we're not using chemical pesticides because it's indoors, and they know exactly what's gone into the process of growing their food, and it's come rooftop straight to their door.
Great, thanks.
Again, Steve, what are your thoughts?
I guess, Jara, I'm having trouble formulating this as a question, so I'll just make it a sort of a statement. But I think what you're trying to do is interesting. A lot of questions or concerns come to mind about, you know, finding a, sort of carving up the economics and the interest among all the different players that you're trying to satisfy with this, you know, a little bit like Dan was saying earlier. I didn't quite get the 67,000 of revenue because you talked about $20 per tenant. And I don't know if that meant per month.
Yes, per month, sorry.
Month. So you're talking about sort of 300 tenants is kind of your model.
Correct.
I think of that math. And I don't know, I worry that your Biodome is going to have trouble finding a good placement on a rooftop and being at scale enough to provide enough produce to make, I mean, I think building owners are trying to upscale buildings in terms of offering more amenities, making buildings seem higher end. They are getting the rents for it. But are you going to be able to produce enough produce to kind of satisfy and drive that tenant, you know, enthusiasm for this? And then, of course, it sounds like this is not a community garden. This is a, you know, kind of commercial garden, you know, at a small distributed scale that you're running. So you've got to pick the right produce. You've got to have the right consumer engagement, deliver it, you know, the right way, all of that. So I think it's very interesting. I think you're on the right track. If you said you did 300 customer interviews and you have a couple of buildings to try to work with up front, I think you'll learn a lot as you take these first steps.
Thank you. To address the issue of feeding the tenants, we have gone over the numbers in terms of the amount. Like I said, we do use vertical farming. So we have 3 tiers of interior sections where we grow plants. Our units are around 400 square feet, which in talking to building owners should be able to fit within the HVAC units that they already have on top of their rooftops, not being too big, but being able to provide enough to feed these tenants around 14 produce items weekly.
All right.
All right. I've got a couple questions from the audience here to add to some of the pressure that our experts have already put on you. Todd has asked if you're considering bringing in Pauly Shore in any kind of advisory role.
No, I am not considering bringing on Pauly Shore. I do know the movie though. We took our name from a 1980s NASA project working to grow plants on the moon, although the movie is also cool.
You know, gotta mix it up. Can't always be so serious revenue numbers here, guys.
I'm
We
kind
do
of
have a couple
impressed
more.
I'm kind of impressed you got the URL.
We have a couple other questions on some of the logistics here, including who covers the cost of it installing and maintaining the biodome on each apartment building. I think you shared earlier that that's your team, right? They come in once a week, or is there additional?
Correct. So
logistics there?
we'll cover the cost of the installation and the maintenance. This is mainly the reason why we cover the cost of installation is because in talking with these building owners, one of the biggest hits for them in terms of choosing not to bring on an amenity is the fact that it's a large hit to their cash flow statement if they have to install a pool or a fitness center or whatever else, which is why we chose to go with more of a subscription-based model, because it allows them to spread out that price over time and they get to generate a revenue stream, which is important to them from the amenity.
Okay, that's fair. We also want to know if there's any comparison here and how might you compare in cost and delivery to existing more innovative farms like Aero Farms, which is sold in Whole Foods.
Sure. So Aero Farms is the one in Newark, correct? So, I mean, the biggest thing that we have that Aero Farms doesn't is we're planning to be directly in cities on top of rooftops. So they still have to go through the whole shipping and processing portion, which is the most expensive and the most energy consuming portion of the entire agricultural process. It actually accounts for something like 70% of the energy consumed in the entire agricultural process. So they're having good production costs and they're able to ship these things, but they're not doing the same types of environmental, energy reduction that we would be doing by eliminating the shipping and processing.
Okay, that's fair. Just two more questions. At the beginning, and I think on your website, there's talk a little bit about food deserts. So I'm very curious to understand that aspect of this business and if there's a plan in place to make sure that these are strategically placed, subsidized if needed in areas with low income or subsidized housing in urban environments.
Sure. Yeah. So we are very passionate about trying to help eliminate food deserts as a whole. We think that making sure that people get fresh produce is a very important thing. And like I said, we're trying to enter into the market via the high-end sector, but that doesn't limit where we would like to go with this. We have been in contact with LIHTC Housing, as well as some other government programs, and we would be interested in implementing biodomes in these food desert areas as co-op spaces, or they count as points towards the Housing and Urban Development Act for some of these developers who may be interested in installing them on their new buildings. So these are certain ways that we're looking at being able to help work towards eliminating food deserts. Additionally, we do plan to partner with charitable organizations such as Feeding America or local soup kitchens in order to help give away additional produce that we have, so that we can get it to these places and cities.
I think that's a much better idea in terms of the maintenance requirement. I just think it's hard to tend a garden that size with, one person visiting once a week, and to do, tend the garden, do all the picking, packing, delivery, etc. So I think trying to leverage it as a co-op credit model seems a lot better.
I
Thank you.
also know I recently sat down with a member of a large healthcare system, and they were speaking to how wellness and food and ultimately diet plays a huge role in not only mental health, but of course your physical health, and how oftentimes starting this pipeline in the home is an incredible opportunity to create the right behaviors and patterns to eat healthier. And perhaps maybe it's a way to introduce the work ethic into some of like the high school students living in these buildings, that they can help pick produce and deliver. And it might be an opportunity to provide not only work experience, but also a healthy path forward for eating that can provide probably limitless opportunities down the line for just a better life, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
I think that's a really important point, and I think that part of your marketing campaign could be focusing on social determinants of health, where you're
Right.
identifying food deserts, ultimately going in, and the important component of this is education. I mean, obviously, people who live in food deserts, it's about education, understanding what's nutritionally impactful. But the socioeconomics is something else that I question, and in order to penetrate these markets, there's a cost, and it's a want to have versus a nice to have. So I think that you have your work cut out in terms of market penetration, and really devising a very clear marketing strategy. But I think the idea is really creative and innovative.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Farb, we're going to bring you back on. Unfortunately, our third startup was unable to join us today, so we extended the Q&A time, as some of you might have noticed, for each of these two on stage here on our virtual stage. I'm going to launch our poll for audience choice and hope folks just pick the first two, being that we didn't get the third one the opportunity today. While we've got a minute and the polling is coming in, I do want to take this opportunity to remind folks that the third annual Tech United Better Planet Challenge is live with applications for startups. This year's focus for this challenge, which is in partnership with PSEG, is on alternatives to fossil fuels and innovative solutions that provide a path forward for decarbonization. So I know that has been a constant thread through the conversation today. And I'm sure that one you're all seeing in just your general narrative as you read the news and pay attention to what's going on in the world today. But I do want to make sure that everyone is aware of that opportunity, takes the time to apply if it makes sense for you. While these results are coming in, I want to thank again our incredible judges today. Abigail, Steve, Dan, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your wisdom. And Jara and Dr. Farb, thank you so much for presenting your incredible organization.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for having us.
Great ideas. All the best.
Awesome. Well, we're going to give everybody back a couple more minutes of their day. Thank you again for joining us. Today's winner of the Audience Choice Award is by a narrow margin Biodome. So congratulations, Jara. We look forward to seeing what both of your organizations do going forward, and hope that there'll be many more times that our paths cross here. All right. Well, we'll leave on the Tech United high five. I'm going to high five your camera in 3, and we'll see you all soon. 1, 2, 3. See you guys. Have a good one.
Bye, take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Okay.